We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Friday, and this podcast is going to be a little different than most because I'm lazy. I'm going to try to do a TikTok live while simultaneously recording the podcast. So if you miss the live, you'll get the podcast, vice versa. But the thing about it is I've tried this twice already once. Already once. I've tried it twice, and each time the TikTok was glitching. So it was freezing up and it wasn't stopping. I don't know if it'll do it again this time. I'm going to do it one more time. And if it goes, we'll go. If not, we'll do a regular podcast. So let's give it a try. I'm going to hit the live one more time and we'll see what happens. I don't know if it's on my end or if it's on TikTok's end or whatever. We'll see what happens. So we're on live now. We've got a lot of shit to talk about. There's been some things going on, and Donald Trump is not having a good week. He wasn't having a good day. Uh, we'll see what live does here because I'm getting a little annoyed at this point. Um, this is my third attempt on going live on TikTok. And the reason I've had to stop a couple of times is because the feed has been glitching. The signal wasn't good. So now you're all coming back, and I appreciate that. And hopefully this will work this time. If it doesn't, I'm done for good. I won't be doing a live tonight, but we'll see how this shakes out. We'll see if TikTok can kick this up a notch and make this work. Now, as I'm telling other folks, understand that as I'm doing this TikTok live, I'm also doing the Rational Boomer podcast for tomorrow. I've done this before, and for whatever reason, people like it. So it's a good way to be lazy and kill two birds with one stone. So we're going to be talking to folks. California Love says hello from San Diego. Loves San Diego. Great city. We have a lot of things going on with Donald Trump. Did you hear that Peter Navarro, that stooge that worked for Donald Trump, he was in the administration. He was asked to testify in front of the January 6th committee, and he said, yeah, no, I'm not going to do it because Donald Trump has absolute immunity. And of course, everybody says, no, you don't. Well, anyway, he was convicted of contempt of Congress. He went to trial. He lost. Today, he was sentenced to 4 months. Now, what that ultimately means is he's probably going to appeal it, much like Steve Bannon did. Steve Bannon got about 4 months too, but he's still out because he's on appeal. So it'll take a while to get this done. The only difference is I don't know if Navarro has enough money to do the appeal. He's been whining and crying about money. He's trying to do GoFundMe's, but nobody knows who he is. Nobody cares. They don't even like the fucker. Teresa Pass says, do you think Trump is an addict? Yeah, I think Trump is doing something, whether it be Adderall or whatever, but you can see it in his face. He's got some distinct problems. Bone says, love your post and your podcast, Boomer. Thank you very much. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the podcast, it's called the Rational Boomer Podcast. It's on every night for about an hour, hour and a half. This live will be a podcast for tomorrow. If you want to find out how to connect to it, it's on YouTube. But you just go to rationalboomer.com and there'll be all kinds of links to all the different platforms, all the different podcast platforms, and YouTube, of course, too. I want to also say to the folks, you will get Trumplefux coming into this live. Gray Captain is one of the moderators out there trying to shore everybody up. And if you see the Trumplefux or they try to start something with you, just ignore them. They're looking for a platform because they can't get one on their own. And if you interact with them, it'll just cause more problems. I'm not going to respond to them, and you shouldn't either. Infinity says, I caught you on live. Yes. Yeah, it's rare that I do it. It's not that I don't want to do it. I just don't get the opportunity. And with all the other stuff going on, it makes it very difficult. Teresa says, listening to you makes me hopeful he will not be president. Well, I guarantee you he's not going to be president. I've talked to other people about this and they said, well, he might. Please tell me how. He lost in 2020. He's done nothing to gain a bigger audience, more support, or more votes since 2020. Everything he's done has made it worse for him. So please tell me how he can get in. Somebody says your posts give me sense of calm. Well, that's good. That's how we always should be. Where we make the most mistakes is when we panic. When there's trouble, that's the last time you should panic. I'm Mexican American and I support Biden. Please vote blue. Thank you. I appreciate that. People will vote with their wallets. Yeah, that's what they say. Economy is a big part of how people decide to vote. And as luck would have it, the economy is doing well in spite of what Donald Trump has said. GDP was up today, 3.1. We've got low unemployment, lower inflation, lower gas prices, wages are up, manufacturing is up. There's nothing in the economy that says it's bad other than the Republicans and Donald Trump. Surfer Dave says, love your show, brother. We need more information that we don't get on TV news. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's the problem. You don't get the information. And it's not that they don't have the information, it's that they want to scare you. They want to make you nervous, you know? They want to get you hyped up to keep you coming back. There's a lot to be calm for. There's a lot going for the Democratic Party and this country. And instead of worrying all the time, we should be looking at the positive, take a look at the facts, and understand what the facts mean. And the facts mean Donald Trump is fucked, quite frankly. Trump is guilty of insurrection. The definition says it all. Yeah, in my opinion, that's true. But we're going to have to wait for the court cases and see how they shake out. I think Donald Trump's in deep trouble in the D.C. trial. I think he, without question, is going to lose that, and it's going to get him a conviction before the election. So that's going to be a problem. Somebody says the stock market is about the same as it was 5 years ago. Really? Because it's up around 38,000, the highest point in its history. When Donald Trump left office, it was at about 3,000. So I don't know if if you don't understand simple math, but 3,000 or 30,000 and 38,000, which one's higher? I would say 38, and they're thinking it's going to go up past 40. That's under Joe Biden. 30,000 is under Donald Trump. So you can say what you want, but you can't fake the fucking numbers. I got 2 female co-workers registered to vote in PA this month. Well, great. Thank you. I think, we should help those people that are maybe a little more apathetic about voting. If we can get them to vote, that will be helpful. Master Clean Supreme, I actually like your content. I do like Trump, however. Have my reasons, but keep on going, my friend. You're entitled to like whoever you want. I don't agree with you, and I think the facts bear that out. But, if you want to stay around and listen and not cause trouble, I don't care. Why is Trump making decisions in the White House he's not in? He's not making decisions in the White House. He can't make decisions on deciding when to go to the bathroom. His diapers are dirty. He's a mess. Donald Trump is not making any decisions at all. I don't know where you get that. Love your post, man. Keep it up. Thank you. I appreciate that. I will keep it up. We've got a long road to hoe until the election, and we are going to be continuing to pound on these people. Food costs are double since Biden. Well, they're not double since Biden. And the reason why food costs are high has nothing to do with Biden. The fact is, food costs are high because of greed. Food costs went high when we had COVID and we had the supply chain problem. And then when they raised the prices, they said, hey, why don't we just keep doing it? Things are starting to come down now, but not as quickly as we like. Inflation is down to like under 3%. So it's going the right direction, but it takes time to do it. The important thing to remember with Joe Biden, it's getting better. When Donald Trump was in, by the time he left, it got worse. Remember, Donald Trump is the only person, only president to leave office with fewer jobs than when he entered. Donald Trump lost jobs. Joe Biden has created 14 million jobs or whatever. Interested in your thoughts on the border? Well, I have some thoughts on the border. You know, it's funny, the Republicans keep bitching about how Joe Biden won't do anything about the border. But the fact of the matter is the moment Joe Biden took office, he had a plan for the border. Republicans didn't want to hear about it. They have a plan now in the Senate, a bipartisan plan in the Senate that both Democrats and Republicans are feeling pretty good about, but they're worried about it going to the House. The House doesn't want to pass it. They're going to try to fight it. And you know why? Because Donald Trump called up Mike Johnson and said, hey, I want you to kill that. I want you to kill that. That's ironic coming from Republicans who keep bitching about the border, but they don't want the border plan. And you know why they don't want the border plan? Because, well, Donald Trump as much as said it, we don't want to do anything to give Joe Biden a win. So as much as people are worried about the border, Donald Trump would rather have you suffer longer at the border just for his political benefit. That's the kind of fucks we're dealing with. And, you know, the other thing too is people will say, well, the border's open. No, it's not. It's not open. It's actually no worse than it was under Donald Trump. The fact is, the border has been a problem since the beginning of time. Um, uh, it's always been a problem. No president has fixed it, not even Donald Trump. Some people have said, well, Donald Trump built the wall. He did a lot of good things down there. Then why are we still trying to fix it now? Why didn't Donald Trump fix it in the fucking first place? And if he did fix it in the first place, we wouldn't have this problem now. So fuck that. The border. So Donald Trump is trying to put a stop to the bill in the Senate. He doesn't like it because it'll make him look bad. You always talked about the stock market. Now look at the stock market kicking Donald Trump's ass. And now he's trying to make excuses for that. This is Donald Trump. You bought a pig in a poke when you sided with Donald Trump. And now he's taking your party down. And after 2024, you motherfuckers are all going to have to stand there and say, what the fuck happened? You're going to have to retool, reimagine your party because your party won't be worth shit after 2024 and you get your ass kicked. Great, Captain. It looks like we got a bunch of Trumplafucks in there. So if you want to just start dumping them out of there, I would appreciate it. Um, I'm just trying to keep track. Says TikToker, you're goddamn right. At 33%, Joe ain't going nowhere. Yeah, it depends on how you look at the polls. It's funny. Joe got 67% of the vote in New Hampshire, and he wasn't even on the motherfucking ballot. You guys can talk some serious shit when you're running against other Republicans. How's it going when you run against Democrat? I don't know. Let's think back to 2022. You told us there would be a red wave, and guess what? There was not because you fucked up. And you know how you fucked up? You fucked up by overturning Roe v. Wade. You think the women are going to be forgetting about this? No. You can take all the other shit and throw it aside, but that overturning Roe v. Wade just cost you the 2024 election, just like it cost you in 2022. I'd be willing to bet my house on that. Some people are so thick, they don't get it. You know, this is one of the problems we have with Republicans, and this is what I'm trying to get Democrats not to do. Everything's about fear, everything's about emotion. That's how they live their life. That's no way to live. That's no way to win. You can't be fearful. You got to be confident. You got to look at the facts. Let's look at the facts. Donald Trump lost by 7 million votes in 2020. Like I said, what has he done since that time to improve his lot? Get more support, get more votes? Nothing. He hasn't done anything to get back the 7 million. He certainly hasn't got enough to beat Joe Biden. Joe Biden beat him the last time. He doesn't have a prayer. And honestly, I think with all the stuff that's going on right now, this clown is not going to be able to handle it. You can see it in his face. He's losing, he's slipping, he's talking some shit. He's got dementia. He's got some kind of emotional and mental problem, and he's got to go another 10 months, and it ain't going to be good. It's not going to go well for Donald Trump. I guarantee you that. I'm trying to keep up with the questions. I apologize if I miss your question. Republicans want the border to remain open. That's a fact. Well, they want the border to remain open for one reason, because that's the only thing they can use to fight against Joe Biden. That's their talking point. They don't want Joe Biden to fix it. They want to they want to complain about Joe Biden not fixing it, and then they want to stop him from doing it when he tries. I'll guarantee you this: if Joe Biden said to the Republicans, we will do everything you want, regardless of how draconian it is. We'll do everything you want. They would still turn him down because they don't have anything to fight against Joe Biden. And that's the one thing that is their talking point. Let's see here. It's a sincere pleasure seeing you here, Mike. You are a positive inspiration. Thank you very much. Trump is asking his lackeys to do anything for the border, not to do anything for the border, to make Joe Biden look bad. That's exactly what he's doing. We know it. The Republicans know it. And some of the Republicans are pushing back. They don't like this shit either. They're not happy about it. So um, this all may backfire on the Republicans. They talk about the border. It's being presented, and they're the ones that are going to turn it down. It's not. It's a lot like the shutting down of the government. MAGA wants to shut down the government, but the normal minded Republicans know if they do that, it's going to hurt Republicans. And in this situation, if they don't pass this, it's going to look like the Republicans not wanting to do anything with the border. The border was never secured under Trump. That's exactly right. The border has never been totally secured under anybody. It's always been a problem for presidents. I will tell you this: Joe Biden has deported more people in his 3 years than Donald Trump did in his 4 years. Donald Trump is all about revenge and not healing and uniting folks. Um, yeah, that's exactly right. You have to understand who we're talking about when we're talking about Donald Trump. We're talking about a narcissist. He doesn't care about other people. He's a sociopath. He's proven that. And being a sociopath, he's only there to benefit himself. That's why he doesn't want the border thing resolved. The only good reason for that is because he's nervous about the election in 2024, and he should be, because he's going to lose big. But you know what? He's even nervous about Nikki Haley. He only beat her by 10 points, and Nikki Haley's decided to stay in the race. Now, the chance of her winning any other primary is zero. But Nikki Haley is playing the long game. What she's doing here is staying in the game because she knows at some point Donald Trump will implode. He will fall off the deep end and he will not be able to run for president. And then she will get the nomination by default. This is exactly what she's doing. That's the only chance. That's the only chance for her to get the nomination. Donald Trump is threatening to blackmail Haley. Remember the RNC hack? Yeah. Donald Trump's always got some threat. But you know the thing about Donald Trump and his threats, he never comes through with them. He's a typical bully. He'll get in your face and try to bully you. And the only way he wins is if you fold up and die and say, oh, God, forget about it. I don't think Nikki Haley's going to do that. And certainly the Democrats aren't going to do it. He's going to have a problem. His tactics as a bully have not worked for a long time now. And he's getting a little freaked out about it. He's starting to flail. And as he starts to flail, he's going to make more and more mistakes. President Biden's deportation numbers aren't shown on Fox, OAN, et cetera, et cetera. No, nothing positive for Joe Biden is shown on Fox, OAN, or Newsmax. But what you have to understand is those aren't news sources. They're entertainment channels. They've said as much. When they get sued, they go, "Oh, nobody should believe us. We're just entertainment." But there are some dumb fucks out there that think they are the news, and they believe whatever they hear. Did Judge Kaplan question Haba on delaying the court for her illness while at the Trump rally? I don't think he has as yet, but that was an interesting one. The E. Jean Carroll case started up again, and of course Donald Trump testified. Now here's the weird thing: Donald Trump only sat on the stand for 3 minutes. Alina Haba threw in some softball questions, and then he had to be cross-examined by the prosecution team, and they didn't ask him much other than that deposition video that they showed. Do you stand by everything you said? And like an idiot, Donald Trump said, "Yeah, of course, I stand by all of that." Well, that's great because you implicated yourself multiple times in that deposition. And he said, while he was only on the stand for a few minutes, Kaplan, the judge, had to stop him multiple times because he was breaking the rules. I don't even know Eugene Carroll. It's a hoax. She's a liar. That's already been adjudicated. He's already been found liable for the crimes. Now we're just trying to find out what the amount is going to be that he's going to have to pay. So we'll see what that is. But um, for whatever reason, Donald Trump still thinks he can talk his way out of this. This is this is a psychosis that Donald Trump has. He doesn't even know when he's lost. He can't even comprehend that. So anyway, Donald Trump is leaving the courtroom, and he turns around and he says, "This is not America. This is not America." And he's almost weepy. Well, Donald Trump should be crying. He also said that I'm just trying to protect myself, my family, and the presidency. Look, motherfucker, you ain't the president. You ain't nobody. You're a felon, and you're waiting to be convicted. So Donald Trump is not doing himself uh, any good. And I can illustrate perfectly as to why Donald Trump is scared. What proves he's scared? Donald Trump has been through two primaries. He won the first one handily. It was a little closer than he expected on the second one with Haley in New Hampshire. He wants Haley to drop out. He likes to be the alpha male, but he's a wuss. He's not very strong. He's not very smart. He's not very articulate. So what he does then is now he's going to the RNC and he's trying to get the RNC to just crown him the nominee without going through the primaries. Now, Nikki Haley can go through every primary and lose every one of them. That's her right. So the fact is that Donald Trump is nervous with Nikki Haley, and he should be, because Nikki Haley is going to expose him all along the way. Nikki's finally starting to kick back on Donald Trump, finally starting to kick back on Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is a bully. He doesn't like it when people push back. So this is making him nervous. And if the RNC actually crowns him the nominee, that's going to look really bad. That's going to piss off half of the Republican Party, and that's just not going to work. Nikki's waiting for a flood of Democrats, only in the primaries. I mean, one of the things you have to understand, one of the things that's most scary for Donald Trump is that in the last vote in New Hampshire, 75% of the independents voted for Nikki Haley. Now, if you're a Republican going to a general election, you have to count on a lot of independents. And it doesn't look like the independents are too interested in Donald Trump. And therein lies his problem. It was his problem in 2020. He lost all the women in the suburbs. Now they've overturned Roe v. Wade. Donald Trump says it was all me. You should thank me for it. Well, go ahead and own that shit, Donald Trump, because what's going to happen is you're going to lose about 70% of the vote because 70% of the people in this country support Roe v. Wade. See, he's too stupid to even understand that. Even the Republican Party wants to embrace this concept, but it was a fucking loser from the beginning. The fact that they overturned Roe v. Wade is a tragic thing for a lot of women in this country, but in terms of an election, it was a gift to the Democrats. Can someone please send me gas and grocery money? Yeah. You know, that's an interesting thing. We hear people about whining about money, and we hear about people whining about we give too much welfare. You know who gets most of the welfare? It's fucking red states. And it's because they're not very bright. Now, there are people in red states that are fine, but the blue states end up subsidizing the red states, yet they're the ones bitching about the subsidies. Makes no fucking sense. Nina says, I laugh at the GOP. They say Jan Sixers are hostage, but they don't put any money in commissary. Well, that's exactly right. The Jan Sixers are hostages. Well, I guess you don't believe in rule of law. I guess you don't believe in the judicial system. Are you telling me that 1,000 people were convicted wrongfully? I find that hard to believe. Thank you for explaining about the blue states supporting the red states. Well, they do. I mean, it's common knowledge. Thank you for recognizing that. Let's see here. What else do we got? Military farm subsidies, and we're worrying about, God, they go so fast. I'm sorry. Military farm subsidies, and we're worrying about feeding kiddos, people in need. Well, see, that's the interesting thing. These people are worried about the prices and the gouging by the wealthy people. And you want to cut back Social Security, which is never going to happen. So don't worry about it. And you Republicans, you dumb fucks, go ahead, keep talking. You think Roe v. Wade was a bad one for you? Wait till you start fucking with Social Security. You're done. But but the fact of the matter is, if you're worried about how we spend our money, why would you give $2 trillion in a tax break to the wealthy? Why do you give nearly $1 trillion to the defense budget when we don't need that much in there? Let's see here. Mitt Romney just wrote a commercial for the Dems. Yeah, I think some Republicans are at this point where they realize that we're looking at the potential demise of the Republican Party if something isn't being done with Donald Trump. And so they're out there fighting against Donald Trump. After Joe Biden was inaugurated January 20th, 2021, they should have let that motherfucker go and never look back because Donald Trump ruins, destroys, kills everything he's involved in. He proves it in everything he's ever been involved in, and he proves it right here with the Republican Party. The Republican Party is dying on the vine. Take a look. They've had the House of Representatives for what? Not quite 2 years. They have done zero. And the one chance they have to try to deal with the border, they're going to shut it down because their Lord and Savior, Donald Trump, says, you need to do that because I need help with the election. Fuck you. Keep ruining things. A lot of people say to me, when are we going to get things better here? Well, the fact of the matter is, because of the way the Republicans are, we're not going to get better until after the 2024 election. Democrats need control of the House, they need control of the Senate, and they need control in the White House. They will get that. The Republicans have done nothing to help themselves, and they've done a ton to hurt themselves. So once that happens, then we can start getting some things done around here. Sean Tynan says, refreshing to hear common sense. How do Republicans seriously ignore? I'm losing it here. All right, love Boomer podcast. They won't cut Social Security, but they will tax it more using creative taxing. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Why do they tax Social Security at all? I mean, taxes were paid on that initially when we paid it in. Why would we be taking taxes on income that we put away? Lynn says, I just love you. I love you guys too. Thank you. I hope your neighbors see this and realize how extreme you are. Well, I tell you what, there is nobody I don't know, nobody that isn't around me that know exactly who I am. And you know what? They either they either agree with me or they just ignore me. And either way is good for me. Um, moving on. People they use the border every time there is a people they use the border every time there is a coming election. Just do the damn bill. Yeah, but they don't want to do the bill because it's going to make Joe Biden look good. I mean, there's a lot of things that have made Joe Biden look good. Donald Trump was going to do the infrastructure, couldn't pull it off, but Joe Biden did. Donald Trump allowed the economy to recover and boom like it is right now. Donald Trump lost 2.5 million jobs. Joe Biden created 14 million jobs. I mean, there are some things that Joe Biden could have done better, but you can't ask much more from a guy who comes in, inherits a mess, and then gets all this kickback and this obstruction of justice from the Republican Party. I mean, he's working his ass off and he's getting no help from Congress at this point. How do you think the Texas border issue and Abbott's idiocy is going to play out? Well, I don't know. The border has never been fixed. All you can do is make um, better strategies to make it better. I think Greg Abbott's going to have some problems. Some of the things he's talked about doing are pretty draconian. I don't see him coming out of this very well. He's going to go the way of Ron DeSantis. Now, Ron DeSantis, everybody thought he was the heir apparent. I always said that there's no way he's going to make it because he's a horrible candidate. So, and that's pretty much what happened. He got dumped. He can't run for governor again in Florida. He's already run his course. Now he might try to run against Rick Scott for the Senate, but I got to be honest with you. As far as a politician goes, I think Ron DeSantis is um, dead in the water at this point. Absolutely dead in the water. And I think that's where Greg Abbott will end up as well. Greg Abbott has done nothing to help himself. He's I think he's almost dumber than Ron DeSantis. Honestly, I think he is. There's no question about it. These people are just destroying themselves. It's going to be very entertaining come 2024 when there is the blue wave. Democrats own the House, the Senate, and the White House. I'm going to enjoy this because a lot of people are saying to me, well, when Donald Trump's president, you're going to cry. No, because it can't happen. It won't happen. You're the ones that's going to be crying. And I think right after that election, when all of that happens, I'm just going to do a bunch of TikToks saying, hey, Trump fucks, and then just laughing my head off because they're jokes. They're absolute jokes. Wes Blake says, you're very rational. I watch your videos release and watch them completely and some repeatedly. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. DOJ is going after mega congressional enablers. Yeah, that day is coming. That day is coming where the DOJ or Jack Smith will indict sitting members of Congress, maybe Ginny Thomas, maybe Roger Stone, and some of these other fucking clowns. Some people think that he's forgotten about them, but he really hasn't. He hasn't forgotten about them at all. The thing about it is that he wanted Donald Trump's trial to be clear of any confusion. He knows that with Donald Trump, there is a time sensitivity to it. They need to get this trial done and over by the election. And so they focused on Donald Trump, but there's a lot of other people involved in this whole insurrection thing, and they're going to get their day. I don't know if they're going to wait until Donald Trump's trial is started or until it's over, but they are going to get the sitting members of Congress. Now, I would love to see them do it before the trial and get that whole fucking thing stirred up, and it could happen. Um, but who knows? I mean, everybody gets worried about it. But I'll tell you this, I trust Jack Smith. He knows what the fuck he's doing. I'm just going to sit back and watch what he does. And I'm not going to get too impatient. I get that from a lot of people. They will say to me, "Oh, when's it going to happen? Nothing's going to happen." Well, if you really look at what's going on, a lot of shit already happened. A lot of shit happened. And to say that nothing's going to happen, you're not paying attention. Republicans don't believe in the rule of law. I would have to agree. Gen Z will end MAGA and Trump. Everything that comes up about Biden goes away. Yeah. Why doesn't anything stick to Trump? Well, I beg to differ. He's got 91 felony charges, 4 indictments in 4 separate um, districts. He's got 2 impeachments. He's been sued. He's lost that case to Letitia James. We're just waiting for a number there. And when that number comes out, it's basically Judge Engoron saying, I'm taking all your shit, because he's going to take all of Donald Trump's shit. And that's why, when people say to me, look, man, what about this thing in Florida? Or what about the case in Georgia? What if it goes past the election? So what? So what? Some of this stuff is going to go past the election, because in a week or so, Judge Engoron's going to come out and say, I'm taking all your shit. And I'll tell you this, taking all of Donald Trump's money and power and property is going to be more devastating to him than any kind of conviction. It's going to take the wind out of his sails. It's going to take away his entire identity, and he's not going to be able to do anything. And then when he gets convicted of felonies in Washington, D.C., there's not going to be much left of him or Florida and Georgia to do anything to him. He's going to be destroyed. I want you to understand this. Between now and November, when the election starts, Donald Trump will be an oil stain in the political platform. He can't get out of this. People will say to me, well, what if he doesn't get held accountable? He's got 91 felony charges from prosecutors that have a conviction rate of 98%. Out of 91 felony charges, he only needs 1 or 2 to be done for good. He's done. He's done. He's absolutely done. So when people worry or they say to me, why are you so confident? Because all the facts suggest Donald Trump cannot win the election, but it also tells us that he can't even get to the election. The Republicans are freaking out right now because he's destroying everything that's possibly good with them, and they're so cowardly that they are willing to push back against Donald Trump. They're waiting for that moment when Donald Trump gets lame. The moment Donald Trump is no longer viable and they are no longer afraid, Donald Trump will be kicked to the curb so fast, you will not believe it. Someone saying Elvin Bragg's case is coming up. That's right, the Manhattan District with the Stormy Daniels. That is coming up soon. So it doesn't take much to take Donald Trump out of the narrative, and it's coming soon. Somebody says, love your confidence. Haven't heard it from many other sources. No, that's true, but there's no money in confidence. There's no money in making you feel good. The media wants you to be scared. They want you to be upset. They don't tell you all the facts. I mean, it'd be one thing if they told you news stories that made you scared, but I know they leave out information. They leave out all kinds of information. They want you nervous. They want the drama. That's what they're about. Um, and that frustrates me. I'm a firm believer you go into anything assuming the best and be confident, and that's how you're going to win. Being fatalistic and negative about it, you're almost guaranteeing you're going to lose. So when I get people coming to me saying, "Oh no, oh, the world's going to end," I go, "Get the fuck away from me, because you're no good to me. You're no good to us in as far as getting what we need done." Um, Still seeing some Trumplafucks out there. Somebody says Kamala isn't viable. Disagree. We had Old Soul on the podcast yesterday, and if you know who Old Soul is, you'll know what I'm talking about. But actually, Kamala is very viable. You remember in 2020, she was going to run for president, and I thought she was a very sharp woman. She's more progressive than Joe, but Kamala's doing a lot of shit, a lot of effective shit. Like Old Soul told us, she was going around talking to the millennials and the Gen Zs in colleges and stuff, and giving her speeches. And she's quite a good speech giver. Now she's going to red states talking to people, women, about the abortion issue. I mean, that's what you've got to understand. The Roe v. Wade, overturning Roe v. Wade isn't a Democratic issue. It's a woman's issue. 50% of the country is women, and you take a constitutional right away from them, they're going to be pissed. And if you think they're going to forget, well, you've never been married. I've been married for 40 years. I still deal with bullshit I did back in the 80s, so they don't forget. And they aren't going to forget for 2024. It's going to go badly for the Republicans just based on overturning Roe v. Wade. Um, but don't worry about Kamala. My only thing I would suggest, and they're starting to do it now, is the Democrats need to showcase her more. Because of Joe Biden's age, people want to feel comfortable about who might replace him if the worst should happen. And as long as they feel comfortable with Kamala, that'll make it easier for Joe Biden to win. How can Dems do better in rural areas? They should do better in rural areas. They're better for rural areas and the farm subsidies and such. I don't know. The only thing I can possibly say is that with people who support Republicans at this point and the people that support Donald Trump, it truly is a cult, because they can be shown the facts in front of their face and they won't listen to it. They won't believe it. They only believe what pushes their own agenda. I've had occasion to talk to Trumplafucks on my show. Hasn't gone well for them, and then they go off, slink off, and never see them again because they're embarrassed. It's not that I'm a genius debater; it's that they're not very bright. Um, but what I've learned from talking to Trumplafucks is no matter how you approach them, no matter how much in the way of facts you have, they can't comprehend it. They don't accept it. They only want to hear what they want to hear, whether it's the truth or whether it's a lie. And the fact of the matter is I don't have time to talk to motherfuckers that don't want to listen. If you're not capable of learning, there's nothing I can do for you. Um, I do know some religious zealot women that will only vote for Trump. I don't get that from other women. Yeah, that's one of the biggest problems we have in this country and with our government and our politics is they've allowed religion to creep in. Now, I'm a guy that believes in God, I pray, and I do all that stuff, but I do not like organized religion, and here's why. Organized religion is simply clubs run and organized by people who are naturally sinful or naturally fallible. And these people tend to go with their their prejudices, their own self enrichment, how to make money, and that sort of thing. So there's a phrase in the Bible, I think, and I'm not a theologian by any means. It says the only way to get to God is through Jesus. Didn't say church. It didn't say minister. It doesn't say priest, through Jesus. And you know what? If you're a religious person, you can talk to whoever you want. You can talk to God directly. You don't need some motherfucker with a offering plate to get you there. You really don't need it. Now that said, I will say those people will tell me there are good churches and good religions, and I get a lot of good out of it. God bless you. If you like what you're doing with these religious organization. If it's good for you, by all means, do it. And when I say the things I'm saying, I'm not saying that's how everybody should look at it. It's just how I look at it for me. This is not a Christian nation, separate church and state. Yeah, they will tell you that the Constitution was based on Christianity. That is not true, and there is a specification of separation of church and state, and there's a good reason for it. We got the fuck out of Britain back in the 1700s because of the oppression from religions and royalty. We don't need another dictator. We don't need religion dictating how we should lead our lives. I mean, it's great that people might be against Roe v. Wade, but the fact of the matter is 70% of this country support Roe v. Wade. So why are we sending people to Congress and to the White House making decisions for us that are contrary to what we want done in this country? See where the problems are? There's a lot of people saying some very nice things about me on this live, and I appreciate it. I feel funny reading them because then I feel kind of not very humble. I'm not a real humble guy, but you know, it's hard to read praise for myself. Benny says Barry Goldwater said that he fears most was the church getting into government. And he was right. And Barry was a hardcore conservative too. So how things have changed since those times. It's really gotten a lot worse. Really appreciate you, Boomer. They have to force us to have kids. Yeah, that's exactly right. I was just reading a something about, you know, since they overturned Roe v. Wade, the numbers of women who have been raped and became pregnant, and there was like 26,000 of them in Texas. Texas, what the fuck is going on down there? I will tell you this, I'm doing something early next month that I thought I wouldn't do. I'm going to Texas. My wife and I are going to take a short trip to South Padre Island, which I understand is a beautiful place. Don't want to go to Texas because of the way they run their state. That said, there's beautiful places and beautiful people in Texas, but I'm going to go down there. I'm going to be near the border. And you can bet your ass I'm going to drive over to the border with my little camera on my phone and we'll see what it's looking like down there. I realize that may not be the most used border, but I'm interested to see what I run into in Texas. Now, from time to time, I get people recognizing me. And we have people from Texas listening to the podcast and watching the TikToks. But it'll be interesting to see if we see some Trumplafucks that recognize me. Probably not, because I block all Trumplafucks on TikTok. What else we got here? Make sure you go to Sea Turtle Incorporated. Love that place. You know, I just read about that. That does sound awesome. I need to get some pictures for my granddaughter. She loves fucking turtles. I wish I could take her with me, but that ain't gonna happen. Um, let's see here. You really simplify the confusion of the news that the broadcasters deliver. Well, that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, it's ironic. If you're a broadcaster, that's one of the first things I learned about going into broadcasting. The key to communication is be able to send a message or give information to people in a way they can understand it. That should be the first and foremost thing any communicator does on television or radio or the internet. But unfortunately, that's not the case with our media, whether it be left side or right side. They all make it confusing and they make it scary, and it doesn't need to be. Texas Nana says, I'm from Texas, haven't seen what the news says or people say. I look forward to your view. Yeah, I'm interested to see too. I mean, here's the thing about Republicans, everything they say, everything they do always tends to be hyped up or just a flat out lie, just a flat out lie. And then when they get called out about it, they just ignore it and keep spreading the lie. Will Trump be on house arrest when convicted? I don't know. Do you house arrest this guy? I mean, I suppose that's possible, but I hope not. I hope he gets some time in a cell. Fellow Minnesota native now in Colorado, love to hear your post and video. Thank you very much. Um, yeah, in terms of the immigrants, it's ironic that the Republicans are so dead against migrants coming across the border because so many companies down there count on migrant workers. I mean, they're just cutting off their nose to spite their face. What the fuck are they thinking? I don't I don't get it. But this is what the Republicans do. They say and do things. They constantly step on their own dick. They make themselves look foolish. They hurt themselves because they only have one thing that they want to do. They can't come up with facts. They can't come up with policy. They can't come up with strategies. The only thing they can do is own the libtards or try to smear their opponents. They did it to Hillary Clinton in 2016. They did it to Joe Biden in 2020, and they're trying to do it again to Biden in 2020. I'm curious, what have you heard from the Republicans as far as how to fix the border? Oh, they've got some draconian shit that nobody's ever going to pass, but they've never accomplished anything. They voted against the infrastructure bill in spite of the fact that when Donald Trump was president, they were bragging about it. They don't do anything. And and because they don't do anything, the only thing they can do to win elections is cheat and try to smear their opponent. Um, the extreme Republicans control the conservatives who are hiding. I don't know what that means. Like, will jail be Mar-a-Lago? Thinking it might be. I think it might not be Mar-a-Lago because you understand with this lawsuit that's coming up, he's going to lose a lot of his shit. And he might very well lose Mar-a-Lago because that company or that entity is owned by an LLC in New York where he's getting sued and he's going to be forced to not do business and they're going to take away all his shit. They're going to come back and they're going to say, you owe us $370 million or more. He doesn't have $37 million cash. I don't care what he says, he doesn't have it. So what's going to happen at that point is he's going to have to start selling off things. But the problem is he doesn't have control there, and this will freak him out. The reason he doesn't have control is because he's in receivership. So somebody else, a third party's going to have to start selling this shit off. And since Mar-a-Lago is a crown jewel and worth so much money, in order to pay back the money he owes, they may have to sell that motherfucker. I saw somebody say in the comments earlier that he may be in a shared apartment in Jersey at some point, and he might. I mean, honest to God, what they're going to do with this lawsuit is take everything away from him. Sure, he might appeal it and it might take time, but it's locking up all his money. If he wants to appeal this lawsuit, say they come to him and say, you owe us $500 million. He can appeal it, but he's got to come up with a bond. And that bond is determined by the judge whose ass he's been kicking for the last 2 years. Now, even if he has a 10% bond, we're still talking about $50 million, and he probably doesn't have that. So he's going to have to start selling things off. This is going to make it very difficult for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is in trouble. The people who think he's got a chance to rise from the ashes like a phoenix, you don't know what you're talking about. This guy is so fucked in every possible way. He had a good run. He was able to bullshit and bully people for a while, but that's over now. It's completely over. He sat in court yesterday talking, giving his little testimony in the E. Jean Carroll case, and he was made to look like a fool. His lawyers were made to look like a fools. Party is over for DT. I believe that. I love this when they say, oh, he's a paid agitator. Well, who's paying me? George Soros? Now, I tell you what, I'm not paid to do this. It is my hobby to piss dumb people off. and business is good these days. I understand it so much after listening to you. I appreciate you. Thank you. Well, that's the one thing. There are people that are creators on TikTok or do the podcast, and they're just trying to put on their little song and dance and try to get followers. And frankly, the followers are nice, and I'm appreciative of all the people that listen to the podcast and watch the TikToks. But if after it's all said and done, I can actually do somebody some good, that's where the real value is. There's a lot of people out here just spew bullshit and gain nothing. Whether I have 300,000 followers on TikTok or 3 followers on TikTok, if I can do something positive for somebody, that makes it all worthwhile. Absolutely. Do you think some rich person would give the money to him? No. He's not a good investment anymore. The only reason people give Donald Trump money, like the Russians or whoever, is if they can get something from him, some kind of favor or help. But Donald Trump isn't the president. He's not going to be the president. He's got nothing more to give. He thinks Vladimir Putin's his buddy, but the fact of the matter is he's of no value to Vladimir Putin now. If he loses the election in 2024 or drops out before, you'll see Vlad Putin going quiet about Donald Trump, and same with everybody else. Do you think he loses everything? He gets convicted and will unalive himself? No, I don't, because he's a narcissist. The last thing a narcissist would do was hurt themselves because they think they're the best humans in the world. Donald Trump is a weakling. He's a horrible weakling. He is scared. Usually, what narcissists do, they flail and they flail, and they can get a little dangerous. But ultimately, most narcissists run. They run away. And I suspect that's something that Donald Trump will try to do. It's going to be hard because everybody knows him around the world. You can't exactly leave because the Secret Service is with him at all times. And as much as they're working for Donald Trump, they're a law enforcement branch. And if they let him flee the country, they're going to be in some deep shit here. So if they're going to let Donald Trump flee the country, they better go with that motherfucker and not come back. All right. My biggest worry is that, hold on. My biggest worry is that only like-minded people are looking for the truth. Mainstream media is not. Mainstream media doesn't give a shit either way. They don't care. They just want ratings and they want money. But there's enough people that know what's going on. Again, I'll put it to you this way. We saw what happened in 2020. We saw what happened in 2022. If you throw everything else out, the overturning of Roe v. Wade is enough for the Republicans to lose the election and get hit by a blue wave. Just that one thing is enough. It's absolutely enough. So it's not going to be as hard as you think for the Democrats to beat the Republicans. I know a lot of people will say, oh my God, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. But it's not going to be close. It's going to be a blue wave. Do you think we can get 2 more seats in SCOTUS? Thomas resigns and maybe Alito next. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing. Both those two probably want to resign, not because they're too old, but because they may be having some problems, legal problems with some of the shit they did. Now, theoretically, if the Democrats win in 2024, they wouldn't resign because then the Democrats would be able to fill those spots. Now, if they did resign, that's what would happen. I think what's likely to happen too is if Joe Biden's back in office, we have the House and the Senate. They're going to expand the court. And it makes sense to do that. We have 9 Supreme Court justices. And when they were put in place, that was because we had 9 legal districts in this country. Well, we now have 14 districts. So it only makes sense that we would have 14 Supreme Court justices. So if we can get the House and the Senate to do it, we could technically add 4 more Supreme Court justices. And you want to see the Republicans shit themselves? Oh, man. But for as bad as the Supreme Court has been looking these days, I wouldn't be surprised, at least if that isn't batted around a little bit. I know people have talked talking about it, and I think it's something they need to do. Uh, Gail says, I see breaking news on TikTok often days before seeing it in the mainstream media. Um, yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, I used to watch all the media, MSNBC, CNN, sometimes Fox News, AP, and all that stuff. And I still do to a certain extent, not so much to get the whole story, just to hear the the lead of the story. And then once I know the story, I can dig it out through sources I trust. But I'm even doing that less and less. I'm finding more of it cropping up on TikTok if you follow the right people. Again, when I see a story on TikTok, I don't take it as the absolute truth. I take the story and then I dig it out and try to figure out what the real truth of it is and what the whole story is. But you're right, TikTok is becoming a more and more of a source for me, at least an initial source, um, than what the news channels bring to me. Um, Biden lack of humanitarian support for Palestine is negative. Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I keep hearing people saying, "Oh, the young people aren't going to vote for Joe Biden because his stance with Israel and his stance with Gaza and the Palestinian people." Let's clarify this. What you're hearing on TV is bullshit. The idea that young people in this country are all in force saying, you know, that's the one thing that's going to get us to not vote for Joe Biden. That's absolute bullshit. Let me put it to you this way. They may be upset about what's going on in Israel, but Joe Biden's doing everything he can legally to do it. He's an ally of Israel. He's got to support them, but he's also helped to get the war stopped so he get supplies into the Palestinian people stuck in Gaza. He doesn't have the control to shut it down or stop it like you think he does, but he's doing as much as he can. He's not sending huge numbers of weapons to Israel and fighting next to him. But please explain to me this. If you've got millennials, and I have two sons that are millennials, so I think I know what I'm talking about here. If we get to the election in 2024 in November, do you think the millennials and Gen Zs are going to say, well, what Joe Biden's doing with Israel, that's a bridge too far. I can't vote for him. So instead, they'll vote for a treasonous, somebody trying to overthrow the government, somebody trying to ruin the country for their future? Yeah, I don't think so. But even more importantly, if you're going to have to make a choice and you're a young person, are you going to look at what Joe Biden's doing with Israel as the most important thing? Or are you going to look at the Republicans overturning Roe v. Wade and the abortion issue, which is going to affect millennials and Gen Zs? If you think they're going to pick Israel over Roe v. Wade, that's bullshit. And what you're hearing in the media, what you're hearing from the Republicans sounds just like Republican rhetoric. It's just shit they throw in the air, and some people believe it. Don't believe it. Gen Z and millennials care more about climate change. They care more about Roe v. Wade and some of the things happening in this country. And to think that they would forget about all that and worry about Israel, you don't know what you're fucking talking about. And you don't know millennials or Gen Zs. um, will Trump get to have a say in what they sell his stuff for? I don't believe so. As I've said, he is in a receivership. So there's a third party in there handling all the stuff, dictating how the money goes. I mean, theoretically, this receiver could take any one of his things, like Mar-a-Lago, and say, we got to get rid of that to pay this, and there's nothing Donald Trump can do about it. And they could sell it at fire sale prices if they wanted to. So no, Trump doesn't have anything to say about it. And the thing about it is, this is one of the things that's going to cause Donald Trump to implode. He has no power. He's a narcissist. So being a control freak is part of that. Did they say how much he has to pay yet? No. But Judge Engeron is going to come out with that figure sometime in the next week or so. He said by the end of January. If Trump loses, do you think he'll plead guilty to avoid jail? What you're asking is, do you think he'll cut a deal? Well, not everybody gets a deal. He's got to be offered a deal. Bonnie Willis has already said he won't be offering him a deal. I don't think Jack Smith is going to offer him a deal. He can't just plead guilty and get a special deal. He can plead guilty and pay the price that he's going to have to pay, but I don't think there's any possibility that he doesn't do jail time. I mean, you don't try to overthrow the United States of America and get a slap on the wrist. That's just not going to happen. Um, Helicopter Dad says, I'm off to sleep. Just wanted to say thanks for doing this. It's important. Thank you. Folks are and will be flipping on him left and right. Yeah, you can bet on that. They're going to be doing that to save their ass. Trump's got to be stressed. I don't think there's any question. I know he's a delusional motherfucker. I know he is. But you can only take so much. And between March and November, he's going to be in court pretty much every day or every other day up until that election. He's got a lot of shit going on. And the thing about it is when he's in court for his criminal trials, first of all, he must be there every day. And he must shut up or he will go to jail. It's a much different situation than what he's experienced to this point. This motherfucker's going to have some problems. He's going to be going through a lot of shit. So I just honestly don't think that Donald Trump has the wherewithal to survive what's coming toward him right at this point. He's already struggling. Hold on. How much do you think the jury in Carroll case will force him to make him stop talking? Well, E. Jean Carroll's asking for $10 million, but we know $5 million didn't stop him. I wouldn't be surprised if E. Jean Carroll's jury comes to him and gives him a much bigger figure. Because if 5 million doesn't stop him, is 10 million going to stop him? I don't think so. Donald Trump is not a bright man. Every time he opens his mouth, he implicates himself in something else. He's not going to do well with this. It's not going to work out well. Gail says, after the Navarro sentencing, I wager some some House members are sweating a bit. Yeah, I would say I think they're sweating anyway. I think they probably got some inkling as to who's going to be indicted in Congress. You know, it's not happened yet, but if anybody thinks they're going to get away scot-free, they're sadly mistaken. That's just not how Jack Smith does shit. He's going to take them down one by one, but he wants to make sure he gets Donald Trump done and over first. And I get that. Somebody says, are you saying he'll be found guilty? Donald Trump? Of course he's going to be found guilty. All the evidence proves he's guilty. No free speech on this thread. He mute you if he doesn't like what you say. I don't have to give you free speech here. This is my live. This isn't a public platform. See, the problem with Trumpers, they want to jump on somebody else's platform because they don't have the wherewithal to get any followers. So they come here and they want to start shit, or they think they can accomplish something. I'm going to tell you something. I've been doing this for over 3 years, and you've tried and you've tried and you've never stopped me. So to think that you're going to stop me now, you're fucking delusional. Dubs a few physics say he will not live to see his convictions. I want to see him in a cell. What scares me is he's going to get pardoned. Who's going to pardon him? Think Joe Biden's going to pardon him? No. Think Kamala Harris will pardon him? Do you think Gavin Newsom, if he becomes president, is going to pardon? Nobody's going to pardon him. Like I say, physically and emotionally, he's not well right now. Mentally, he's not well right now. You go through the next 10 months the way he's going to go through it, I don't know how he survives. And I'm not saying he's going to pass away. I'm just saying mentally he won't be able to handle it. He's already making ridiculous mistakes in his speeches, and it's just going to get worse. And the fact of the matter is it's going to go downhill very quickly. Somebody says, God, I hope Gavin Newsom does not become the president of this country. He can't run his own state. I can't speak to Gavin Newsom. I live in Minnesota. I don't know anything about California, but in terms of an image and his speaking ability and his willingness to go after people, he will probably be a good candidate. Whether he should win or can win, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. Trump belongs in a memory care facility. You know what's ironic is Donald Trump's losing his memory, and we all wish we could forget about the motherfucker. I love your content, words of wisdom. Thank you. Hopefully, Jim Jordan, Ted Cruz, and the other morons. Yeah, they're going to go through some shit. Ted may not even get reelected in 2024. He's going up against some candidates that are already beating him in the polls, so he's in trouble. And somebody says that's why we have to vote to make sure it doesn't happen. And absolutely right. We need to vote. You need to vote as much as any other election we've ever had. I know we've always heard people say this is the most important election. The last one was the most important election, but this one is too. I don't think Donald Trump has any prayer to even show up in the election, but it's not just Donald Trump. It's the down ballot. It's all the Republicans in the House, in the Senate, in the legislatures, in the state, the governors, whatever. We need to clear them all out. They are bad for this country. They are trying to hurt this country, and we need to eradicate them as soon as possible. Can't wait to see you after the 2024 election. Well, I'll be here, and I'll be laughing at some motherfuckers. Hey, stranger, great to see you speaking the truth. Tell your wife hello from Cassie. Cassie. Oh, I know who you are, Cassie. I noticed from the name, Staying Zoo. I'll tell her. I'll tell her, Cassie. Thank you. Um, let's see here. What are your thoughts? God damn it. What are your thoughts? We have a chance. Who has a chance? Democrats? Democrats can't lose in this situation. Green E. Penny, I really love your way of thinking. You're on point. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Newsom is swarming like a used car salesman. Well, if you don't like Gavin Newsom, that's fine. We don't care. we, we just don't fucking care. I want to remind folks too that, I do the TikToks and I do the live from time to time, but I also do the Rational Boomer podcast. I do it every night. Sometimes I have guests, but here's the interesting thing about the podcast. I spend a lot of time reading listeners' emails. It's important to get input like we're getting here on the live. I will have guests on from time to time on the podcast, but generally all those guests are listeners, which sounds weird at first, but actually works out very well. We have some great guests. And I will tell you, because I'm lazy, tomorrow's podcast will be this live. I'm recording this live as we do it, and that will be the podcast tomorrow. So if you have an interest and you want to listen to the podcast, by all means, all you have to do is go to rationalboomer.com. And as you look in Rational Boomer, there's a bunch of links to Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all that stuff. But there's a lot of links for the podcast too. There's audio only from all platforms. And then there's a link to YouTube where you can see the video version of the Rational Boomer podcast. So I hope you will check into it. Teresa says, I love you from the start. Thank you for calming us down. Thank you. Amvila 4128. Good night, everyone. Yeah, I'm going to probably have to start winding this down too. Here's the one thing I've learned about doing this live. If you go too long, eventually they get you. The key is to end before that happens. So I'm probably going to wrap it up here. Great Captain. Great Captain is one of the moderators, and I want to say thank you to Great Captain and all the other moderators. You did a great job. We're like an hour and 15 minutes in, and we're still here. what's going on with Fonnie Willis divorce thing. Let's talk about that real briefly, and then I'm going to probably get going. People are all concerned about Fonnie Willis and this alleged illicit affair with the special counsel. And this really smells of Republican bullshit because the fact of the matter is, supposedly this information came out of a divorce proceeding between Fonnie Willis's special counsel and his wife. They're suggesting that Fonnie Willis and the special counsel had some kind of affair and they traveled and all that stuff. But here's the interesting thing. This divorce was started in 2021 and it's been ongoing because this woman is trying to get more money out of the special counsel. This divorce was instigated by the special counsel because she cheated on him. Now she's claiming that Fonnie Willis has something to do with this. Whether that's a thing or not and has any bearing on the case, that's bullshit. It doesn't. But here's the thing. They said, okay, we're going to unseal all the documentation. People going, oh no, they're going to unseal the documentation. Well, when they unsealed it, you know what they found? Well, you know what they didn't find? Any mention of Fonnie Willis. I think that that this is something the Republicans put them up to doing just in order to try to smear Fonnie Willis and create chaos and create some confusion. I think when it's all said and done, it's not going to affect anything with regards to the case. And I think if they don't come up with anything to implicate Fonnie Willis, look for Fonnie Willis to be sending out some indictments for fucking obstruction of justice. Somebody says, yeah, but her name's on some tickets. Well, so what? Even if she did date this guy, so the fuck what? What does that have to do with anything? This is Republicans trying to pull shit out of their ass. They've been talking about how Joe Biden's a criminal, how he's corrupt, how he's taken money. Where's the evidence? It's been 5 fucking years. No evidence. This is what Republicans do. This is what they do. They just talk shit. They make stuff up and they hope it sticks. And unfortunately, none of it's sticking. Doc Dave says Biden's doing an amazing job. Bidenomics, infrastructure, and so we fight on. Absolutely. Marxists attacking Trump. F Marxism, dude. Yeah. I'd love you to give me a definition of Marxist because I don't think you know. You just heard Jim Jordan or Donald Trump say it and you just repeat it. Got a bunch of fucking parrots talking about shit they don't know anything about. With that, I'm going to wrap things up on the live on TikTok. I want to thank you for joining me and coming in and asking your questions. I'll do another live as soon as I can, hopefully sooner than later. But I appreciate you coming on with the live and keep watching for the TikToks and check out the Rational Boomer podcast. You have yourself a great night. I appreciate it. And we'll talk to you again soon. All right. So we ended the live and we're still on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully that played out right. You know, third time was the charm. You know, we had problems with the feed the first couple of times. I started and stopped it twice. Then the third time you heard what happened there. And again, I like to do this because to me, it's much easier to do it when I'm doing a live too, because I'm answering questions or getting on tracks and it seems to move along a lot quicker for me anyway. And it's less taxing on me, believe it or not. I'm talking more, I'm talking faster, but it's easier for me to do that. I've told people before when I was doing play by play or traffic reports, it's almost a momentum kind of thing. If I can get momentum, it just kind of keeps coming. And that's kind of what happened with this live tonight. But I want to thank the folks out there listening to the podcast for taking the time out of your day to do that. I hope you have a great day. And of course, I need to tell you this. Tomorrow, Ed will be back on the show. He'll be back for the second consecutive week. So if you've been waiting for Ed, he's coming back tomorrow. Be sure to listen to that. So I hope you have a great day and we'll talk to you again tomorrow with Ed.